The sound of a coal mine whistle is heard in the shadow of Turtle Mountain, a sound so familiar to this mining community in the Crow's Nest Pass, a place that is no stranger to tragedy.
All these things happen: the Frank Slide, Bellevue mine explosion, Hillcrest mine disaster, forest fires, floods.
On June 19, 1914, 250 men reported to work at 7 a.m. in the Hillcrest mine. 2 hours later, something unthinkable happened.
There was some sort of an ignition. The methane gas caught fire, and then the coal dust exploded like a bomb.
189 men were killed that day. Today, it remains Canada's largest mining disaster.
And, you know, the biggest mine explosion in tragedy in Canada. And I think it's kind of a unrecognized tragedy, really. You know, it's not, we celebrate it down here in Hillcrest, but throughout, you know, the rest of the country, you don't really hear about it that much. And I don't know what bothers us a little bit.
So many lives lost, so many stories. One man went into the mine that fateful morning not knowing if his wife would give birth that day. He would never see his child. That baby was John Elick's grandfather.
My dad was born the day after his dad was killed tragically in the Hillcrest mine explosion in 1914, and that was on June the 19th. My dad was born June the 20th, and his mother, a little Ukrainian lady, had 5 other children at the time, so she raised 6 kids, probably with no welfare, obviously, in those days. Yeah, it was a tragic story. Well, not only her, but all the other widows that were, you know, widowed because of the tragedy.
The names of all 189 victims are carved into the memorial here at the Hillcrest Cemetery. Back on that historic morning, the town of Hillcrest had a population of only 1,000 people, but that morning, 130 women became widows and nearly 400 children became fatherless.
Almost everyone who lived here in 1914 lost someone they knew. And yet, I think the real strength of the Crow's Nest Pass is people are so close, the bonds of common danger, shared danger, that they all pull together. And what's remarkable is how people just keep going.
Now, 100 years later, the town of Hillcrest, Alberta, has come together to commemorate its centennial anniversary. A horse-drawn carriage leads the reenactment of the funeral procession, then a memorial service at the Hillcrest Cemetery, where many of those men were laid to rest, including Thompson Court, a 23-year-old who had been in Canada just 39 days and was just beginning his very first shift on the job when disaster struck.
He arrived in May, I guess it would be May of 1914, and he made his way across the country, wide-eyed and like all immigrants looking for a better life. He did stop at the Regina, probably trying to get employment as a police officer, because he was a police officer in Scotland. And he probably didn't find work right away, so he just went to where everyone goes when they need a job. That's like the oil patch now, it would be the coal patch back then. And he came out, got a job, and unfortunately for him, he was killed on his first shift in the coal mine. So,
Court's grave was recently located in the cemetery after being unmarked for 97 years.
And we'll leave this on the grave for a few weeks just so people can put a face to this guy. So.
Although lives were lost, there were lessons learned. This tragedy has forever shaped the Crow's Nest Pass, but it's also changed the way mines now operate.
So after this explosion in the Hillcrest mine, every Alberta mine had a trained mine rescue team right at the mine site.
For Go Southern Alberta, I'm Jeannette Rocher.